Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adeduba. Here stories making the headlines beyond the continent. We begin the news in North America, where U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has secured the required delegates to clinch the 2024 Democratic presidential nomination. Now, this milestone follows President Joe Biden's withdrawal from the race and his endorsement of Harris on Sunday. Delegate counts confirm that 59-year-old Harris has surpassed the 1,976 delegates needed to win the party's nomination in the first round of voting. The Democratic Party has a total of 3,936 delegates, including former presidents, state and local party leaders, members of Congress, and governors. However, only about half are eligible to vote in the first round. In a vote called by former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, California's delegates unanimously backed Harris on Monday evening, pushing her over the top and solidifying her position as the party's nominee. Let's also tell you that U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has promised she will win against Donald Trump in November, comparing her election rival, who is the first former U.S. leader to be convicted of a crime, to predators and cheaters. And speaking of her past as prosecutor in California, Harris told her campaign staff in Wilmington, Delaware, that she knows Trump's type and had taken on perpetrators of all kinds.
You are still there. And it is my intention to go out and earn this nomination and to win. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, has told his Virginia supporters to kick Kamala Harris out of the Oval Office. According to Vance, Vice President Harris was endorsed as a likely presidential candidate because elite Democrats got a smoky-filled room and decided to throw Joe Biden overboard.
Say that we got to kick Kamala Harris out of the Oval Office. Don't give her a chance. Don't give her a chance to run away from the Biden record. The Biden record is the Kamala Harris record. And given what we know about Joe Biden, Kamala Harris probably did a lot more than Joe Biden does over the last 3.5 years. And if Kamala Harris is too blind or too corrupt to admit to the American people that Joe Biden should have never been in there, she's not fit to serve either. We're going to get them both out of there.
And joining me on the news to talk about this is public affairs analyst Bolu-Biyi. Good evening. Glad to have you join me.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let me kick off by asking what your initial thoughts were when you knew Kamala Harris will now become the Democratic nominee for the 2024 presidential election.
I feel I wish it happened, organically or naturally, not because of happenstance. I would have loved to see a situation whereby she went through the whole process of being adopted, and because it's over a year-month process in order to get the nomination, which she went through the traditional route. But she's there by happenstance. But it's still a positive development because it shows that the U.S. society is the political outlook is reflecting the demographic changes of the country domestically, and also that the United States is coming up to speed in terms of gender and racial equality. We've seen the advanced countries like Germany, the United Kingdom, and New Zealand produce female leaders at the helm of affairs in terms of prime ministers and president, and it's about time that America prepares itself for female leadership.
Well, some persons say organically or not, what difference does it make? But then how would you view her chances in the presidential race in terms of her race and also sex. I mean, we saw how Hillary Clinton, another woman, tried in 2016 and then lost. Now, let's look, what do you make of her chances in this election?
Well, it's first of all, I see it as first a referendum on the performance of President Joe Biden. Also, it's also a test to see whether America is ready for a female president. I would like to see a person of color. I've seen Obama, but a person of color, a female at the helm of affairs. I think it would. Elevates the cause of women all over the world. But as far as the chances are concerned, I think that the time constraint in between. She's getting into on the ballot, very late in the campaign. The elections in November, and she's just being put forward right now. She has a lot of catching up to do in terms of selling her credentials and herself to the public, to the American people. America is very big and very strong politically. It's not difficult to change people's position, stance, and swing voters. So as far as the chances are concerned, because of the time frame, I think Donald Trump has an advantage and may likely win the election.
Well, if the polls are anything to go by, reports indicate that, Trump is just leading by 2. Vote in the polls. We know how things turn out when it comes to real election, and polls might not be the true indicator. But then people are saying so far she's faring well in polls, considering, her being nominated and how she has fared in the polls. But then let's look at the Trump factor. How would you weigh her chances against him? Look at her trajectory so far, her career, from how she has fared, in all her dealings and her career.
Yeah, she's been a prosecutor. She's been the Attorney General of California, also a U.S. Senator, and she's been able to, get decisive skills to allow her to make tough decisions. Because those positions that she held in the past are very sensitive and requires a careful approach to problem solving. And being vice president as well has exposed that away, at the international scene in terms of foreign policy and international relations. So she seems to be well placed in terms of actually, leading from the front in terms of global affairs and domestic issues. She's been clouded a bit in the Biden administration, and I hope that eventually maybe she becomes the president, we'll begin to see her star shine and see more of her and her capacity. But like I said earlier, the time factor is of essence in U.S. politics, and based on that, if were to go by the time factor and when she's been put in the race, Donald Trump still has an advantage regardless of what the poll says. The poll said a lot against Hillary Clinton, but on election day, Trump still won.
Well, some persons say being a prosecutor once means you be a strong debater, and she's likely to outperform or out-debate Trump. Well, time will tell. We'll see how that pans out. But then, as Kamala Harris prepares to potentially become the first female president of the United States, what are the implications for gender dynamics in global diplomacy and, of course, leadership?
Well, her being at the forefront may actually inspire female participation in politics locally and internationally, and position the United States as a positive example to other countries who are still far behind in terms of racial and gender equality. So the U.S., having an history of strong racial divide and gender imbalance, having to come up to speed and in terms of gender and racial equality by having a female president of color may actually position them as a positive example to other countries. It will also put gender equality at the forefront of international policy discussions, and that in turn will definitely elevate the cause of women globally.
All right, thank you so much. We'll hold our breath and see how things pan out in the U.S. Thank you so much for your expertise on the news. Bolu-Biyi, Public Affairs Analyst, many thanks indeed.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.